Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Like I said in the introduction, I am here with Stephen and Eric Wilson, the two founders of Wilson Mining. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you. It's
Thanks for
wonderful to
having
be
us.
here.
Yeah, I'm pumped to dig into this one, guys, because it's when you look at the previous guests on the show, most of the people I've had on are kind of those gigantic mega mining facility operators and owners, publicly traded companies. I think Bob Burnett at Barefoot Mining has the best phrasing for your guys' situation, kind of like the horse class of the
Yeah,
mining world.
I
So
like him.
yeah, he's a sweet guy, and he
Yeah,
just
he's
calls it
solid.
like it is too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I like his clever names and stuff too.
Yeah, I think I'm in the rabbit class personally. I've got just a little bit of hash rate online, so I think I fall into the rabbit
Got
class.
it.
So guys, I'm pumped to get into this because you guys you're in this unique spot with your operation and with your power and your relationship with the power company. So this is gonna be good to get into. Um, Maybe good place for us to start. It helps the audience kind of understand where you guys are coming from and paint a good backdrop for the rest of the
Mhm.
conversation to hear your backgrounds.
Sure.
Um, Eric, why don't you kick us off with a walk through your background and how the hell did you get into Bitcoin mining?
So started off just everyone's Bitcoin origin story. Everyone's got a friend that introduced them to it. Mine's no different. My friend introduced me to Bitcoin in 2018. I started buying and buying and buying. I was buying for a few years. And then one day, I called Steven up and said, "Hey, Bitcoin's down a little bit. You should purchase some." And he had no idea what it was, but he did anyway, like the the risky person he is. And and then I think that's what got him started into it. And then we both kind of had a realization of, well, we want to get some return. I had Bitcoin sitting in my wallet, not doing anything, and I was like, well, I would like to make money rather than watch it go up and down. As fun as that is, I like to make money on this, on my asset that's sitting there. And so we were both thinking, it's like, all right, how do we get a return on our Bitcoin? And there was only a few ways. One was putting it into like a BlockFi or something, and we obviously know how that turned out. And
Yeah.
so thank God we didn't do that. And the only other way was to, I guess, kind of use Bitcoin to buy infrastructure, to buy Bitcoin miners and get Bitcoin that way. And so that's kind of how we came to Bitcoin mining, is we just wanted a return on the Bitcoin we had. And so that was kind of the only real way to do it without giving it to somebody else. Well, I guess instead we gave to an energy company who gives us energy, but we get there in a roundabout way.
Sure. And so Eric, did you have I mean it's super entrepreneurial, which is why I like to hear some of this stuff. Like how how were you even thinking that way? Had you been doing stuff like that before, or what kind of led you to being able to think like that or to thinking like that?
So this is my very first business. This is Steven's, I think, second, third.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, Steven's had a few more businesses than I have. I just, this is the one. Yeah, but no, we grew up. Our mom owns a farming operation in Iowa, and so we grew up watching her work for herself. And I was an auto mechanic at the time, and I was very, very sick and tired of working for somebody else. And I did not like my manager, and I was very tired, and I wasn't getting paid enough, just like everybody. And so I was like, well,
Yeah.
I need. And then I saw, as the crypto assets went up, and I was like, I'm making more money falling asleep that night than I'll make all month. And so I was like, this is, I could be putting this money to work. And so that's what my mom did, is she'd always put her money to work by buying more land or more assets, and they would grow in value. And I thought, well, this is the same way. Bitcoin grows in value, but it's I think better to have a cash flow, because I like to buy things, and if you like to buy things, you have to sell Bitcoin at one point, and I'd rather make as much Bitcoin as I want by mining than have to sell a limited amount that I have and buy more.
I love it. And I appreciate the color on that because again it's super entrepreneurial and there's not a lot of people, even in my own personal life, that think that way. So it's I always love to hear, you know, kind of what got you into thinking that way. Steven, multiple businesses. We're gonna have to hear that,
Yeah.
and maybe your background as well, because that sounds pretty interesting too.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of the entrepreneur of the family, so to speak, and then kind of gave Eric the bug, and he's been running with it, ever since. But yeah, I've been, fully self-employed for going on 5 years now. So I graduated from St. Thomas University. I got a degree in entrepreneurship, which was a big waste of time. Um, in Minnesota, in St. Paul. And then
Yeah.
I worked for Enterprise Rent a Car right out of school as my first job. I lived at home and with my mom and saved as much money as I could, and then got into e-commerce. Was like my first successful kind of like hit in business, and it worked out really well. It was right around the time when COVID was happening, and the stimulus checks were going out. And so, it worked out really, the timing worked out really well with as far
Yeah.
as that business goes. And then, I told this story a couple times, but kind of had a break in my life where business was, just running smoothly, and there wasn't a lot for me to do. And so I finally was like, okay, I need to get serious about this Bitcoin thing. I don't understand it, and I need to do the homework. And either everyone else is wrong or I'm wrong. And let's do the homework. Let's find out, right? So, you do the homework. 30 days later, I called Eric and said, yo, I think we should start a Bitcoin mining business. And, these are the reasons why. And the reasons were, you need a place to put them, you need cheap power, and then you need someone with like the expertise to run the machines, basically. And I was like, okay, I know there's cheap power down in Iowa. Like our land is surrounded by wind turbines. Like I know there's cheap
Yeah.
power down there. So we got to go find the power. Okay. We have tons of land down there in the middle of nowhere. You can just plop a container down. Okay, we've got that one figured out. And then I was like, the third one was who's gonna be able to like, manage the machines, which I am not. I'm like
Sure.
I'm the sales and the marketing and like the business guy. Eric's the one who understands actually how to run the machines. And so, the thinking was like, okay, Eric was been a car mechanic. We've been brothers. I've never seen him hit a machine that he hasn't been able to figure out. Like, I'll just place this bet that he'll be able to figure it out. Sure enough, he figured it out just like he has every other single machine.
Yep.
And that was kind of the bet that we made. And so, we took off down to Iowa and started moving quick, fast, in a hurry, and made a bunch of mistakes along the way that kind of got us to where we are now, I guess.
I love it. Yeah, I actually grew up. I used to like go skateboard on the University of St. Thomas campus and like
Sure.
get chased off by the security guards. Yeah, I used to go cause a ruckus over there. So I'm very familiar with the campus in that area. Very cool. It's interesting that you say your entrepreneurial college degree was, I don't remember if you said bullshit
It was a waste
or
of time. Yeah,
a waste of time.
Yeah,
I went to school for sport management. You want to talk about bullshit?
Yeah, I actually have a lot of
or
friends
waste
who
of time.
did that. Got that degree. Yeah,
yeah. Well, you play sports your whole life. Well, I'll just go into sport management. And then you realize that
Yep.
like the Minnesota Twins are going to pay you $13 an hour. It's like, guys, it's 2023. It's you can't pay me that little anymore.
Right.
Very cool. So I want to get into kind of, where you led nicely into like the genesis of Wilson Mining.
Yeah.
So the start was like, hey, wow, this makes sense. We need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
What was the start? Walk me through like the genesis, the start, like the starting point.
Well, Steven's idea was let's just, because he called me and, he said, let's do this. And I was like, all right, great. Let's, we got X amount of dollars in the bank. Let's go, buy a bunch of miners. And he
I
was like,
pitched
what?
him for 15 seconds, maybe 15 seconds. I wasn't even finished with my pitch before he was like, yes, let's do it. Like, I'm tired of working my job. Let's start a business like Bitcoin mining. Like, boom, I'm in. Like 15 seconds. I didn't even get all the way through my pitch, and he was like, I'm in. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
No.
That's awesome.
No, it was not hard sell. And so anyway, I was like, let's buy, a million miners. Let's plug them all in. And Steven was like, whoa, why don't we start with one and let's figure that out first. Let's make sure, before we spend all this money, let's buy one and figure it out. So we bought our first S19 Pro 110 terahash for like $15,000. We're at the absolute peak.
Tippity toppity.
Just you couldn't get any worse timing than what we had when we first started. It was terrible. But we persevered, so we got this Bitcoin miner, and then we were like, all right, now how do we plug it in? And so then that was, my job figuring out, we need an L630 outlet on 30 amps, and we need a PDU that can handle, 3-4 kilowatts, because of course you want to overclock, you want as much hash as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so get that all figured out, hire the electrician to come to our mom's basement, install an L630P plug, and bought the PDU from Amazon, the cables, and hooked it up to the router, plugged it in, and away we go, hashing our mom's basement for only the cost of like $17,000 or something stupid, ridiculously high. And then, of course, it's super loud. Our mom was very tolerant. If she has the entrepreneurial spirit herself, so she's just letting us, figure this out in her basement. And it was winter, so it was providing her heat as well, so she wasn't too upset. And then we were like, well, this is pretty easy. I bet we can do more of them, but we can't do it here. So where are we going to do it? And he was like, well, there's cheap power down in Iowa. We got the shed down there. Why don't we try down there? And so we call up the electrician and we say, all right, we need 100 we had 600 amp service for because we have a corn drying site. Yeah. So it was already, a lot of it was already there. Transformer was already there. It was a 100 kVA transformer. So we had 600 amp service, 100 kVA transformer. Call up the local electrician. His name is Randy. Him and I get along very well. And that's kind of key. Is you have to know, if you can't do electrics yourself, you have to know the electrician. You have to be able to ask him questions and get help, because again, that's one of the main things. And if it weren't for him, we probably wouldn't be here today.
Mm-hmm.
But we call him up, say, hey, we want to run 600 amps to the shed. And the look he fucking gave me was the dumbest look I've ever seen in my entire life. He said, why the hell are you going to do that? And so to explain Bitcoin to a 65-year-old, Vietnam vet, electrician for 45 years of his life, looking at me like I'm the dumbest motherfucker he's ever seen in his life, trying to explain why anyone wants these cryptocurrencies to him was one of the harder conversations.
Well, kudos to you for even trying. I did the same thing with the electrician at my house. I had a very similar start with one in the basement turned to 4. I squeezed 4 in the basement. My wife was very, very forgiving.
They have to be.
Yeah. But I'm probably shooting myself in the foot if I ever try to sell my house. I did the electrical, so I just had him come in and upgrade the panel.
Okay.
Oh,
and then I did the rest off of that. But yeah, he looked at me like, the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, it's good for you for explaining it to him.
Yeah, no, he just, he was like, as long as the check comes through, I don't care what the hell you do with this electrons.
That's
right. So he ran us 600 amp service to that shed, and we had an immersion setup at the time, and we plugged in our miners, and away we go, and get the first bill, and it's 18 cents per kilowatt hour. And so we had to restart. We had to think all over again what the hell we were gonna do.
So we made a pretty big mistake at the start, and it was a hard lesson to learn, but I'm glad we learned it at the size that we were at, which is that the power is the most important part. And so when we were getting set up, the power provider is Alliant Energy. They're a publicly traded energy company, regulated, the whole thing. Yeah, you've got them, they're pretty familiar here in the Midwest. And so when we're dealing and talking with them, they basically just didn't believe the amount of electricity that we were going to pull. And so, we made the mistake in saying, fine, you don't believe us, I'll show you, without getting anything in writing. Nothing. And we just, were naive and assumed that they were going to, want our business, basically. And so, the first month comes and we're like, dude, this is not going to, like, we're completely underwater here. We built the facility was immersion to start, which is pretty unique, where we actually went and did immersion first instead of air cooling. And so, we had a bunch of immersion equipment that was kind of, we didn't know what to do with. And so we spent, probably like 30 days, a month or so, trying to get to somebody at Alliant Energy that could help us. And we just, very, not sexy, just harassing the entire company, emails, phone calls, trying to get to somebody who could help us and say, look, we want to, this is just our start, but we want to grow here, but these are kind of the rates we really need to get into. And they were just like, not interested. And there's nothing, that you can do. Bitcoin is great for energy companies, but not all of them know it. And, I would not waste a lot of time trying to convince these people that, you're going to be fantastic for their business. If they're not interested in it, they're not interested in hearing you, you're just going to have a tough time with them. So, we kind of had to, bite the bullet and move everything. And it was, very expensive. But luckily there was a local co-op that we had land on in like their territory. So we called them up and they were like, yeah, we actually just got another Bitcoin miner just up and running not that long ago. We gave them really good rates. This is what we give you guys. And we were like, holy crap. Yes. Like this is fantastic. Like,
where do I sign?
We had, like, no, I mean, that's literally what we did. We signed. So then, we got smart with them and, we signed an electrical service agreement, which is, it's similar to a PPA in the fact that, like our rate is locked in, but we're not locked in for like 10 years, like somebody like Riot would be, it's just a 12-month ongoing contract, but it's still a contract with them that, allows us to pull 5 megawatts is what our agreement is for. And we'll grow into that as we get going here. But really just like focusing on like, no amount of efficiency gains through immersion and overclocking was going to fix the bad power that we got into. Like there was no way to fix that.
What, let me ask, what was like the final all-in power rate that they were able to give you? And I say it that way because I am familiar with that power company.
18 cents.
Yeah, they didn't negotiate at all. That was, they said pay the rate or get off our lines.
Yeah.
Was that like large business? I mean, were you guys trying to talk to them about like large business?
Yeah, we were trying. So we're on our property that they were on, that they had power with. It was on an agriculture rate, and so, but what we didn't understand was with publicly traded energy companies, the rates always come with riders and fees and more riders and more fees, and so we looked strictly at the energy rate. And we didn't look at all the other riders and fees and the 10 lines below your energy rate that come along with it. And so we miscalculated and we thought, this is the energy rate. It was like 8 or 9 cents. Like, it's not great, but we can negotiate them down. And, as they see how much power we pull. But again, when the bill finally comes, it has all the regional transmission service. Yeah, because I think one of the biggest ones was the RTS, and that was like they added on 3.5 cents, and there's a bunch of other stuff that
transmission
it just the fees didn't stop, and there was no negotiating with them because they don't own the lines, and we weren't even at a megawatt, we're still really not that big. We're big enough for them to a multi-billion-dollar company to work with us in a small town in Iowa. We just weren't important or big enough for them to give a shit.
Yeah, basically.
Nothing you can do. No, really. I know. And that's what I like about being able to talk through all of this with you guys is like that experience is so different than the guy that, approaches that company and says, well, maybe we'll do a 50 megawatt data center.
Yeah.
I wonder if that conversation is a completely different conversation. But you
Of
said
course.
you guys tried to negotiate, some size into the discussion, but they balked at it. They didn't even care about a megawatt.
Yeah, we said, we're pulling, because we were going to do 100 kilowatt, and so we was like, oh, we're pulling 100 kilowatt 24/7, and they kind of effectively told us, well, no, you're not. We're like, well, yeah, no, this is what we're pulling. It's like, okay, well, you're not. And then, we get the bill and we talk to them and they say, great, it won't stay that way. They just, they just straight up didn't believe us or anything we had to say. It was just, no matter what we said or proved to them, it just didn't matter.
I would also kind of lastly add that that we didn't know very much about how the power and electricity industry, like we didn't know anything about this industry and how it worked at all.
Yeah.
And so that was they're questioning us, but we're kind of questioning ourselves too in the middle of it. Like we're not 100% sure about a lot of this either. Like we're just literally figuring it out as we go. And so that didn't help. Like if we would have known everything that we know now about the ins and outs of how the electric business works, like maybe we would have had a better time breaking through with them. Who knows? But it certainly didn't help that we, didn't know a lot of what we were talking about. And it was hard for us to push back at them a lot too, because we didn't really know what to push back at or how to push back at them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what happened.
It's a weird industry for that reason. I mean, it's like there's not a lot of good sources of information on it.
Yeah, I mean,
let alone how to read your power bill. I don't think I actually know anyone personally that outside of the Bitcoin industry that can read a power bill.
I've paid people for I've paid people that work in the utility industry for consulting, and I would highly recommend it if you are trying to get your feet wet and learn, because this information is not very publicly available to you, and you pay $100 an hour for 4 or 5 hours. Like $400 or $500 is going to be well worth your time, especially if you're willing to pay in Bitcoin to some of the Bitcoiners. If you pay them in Bitcoin versus just like Venmo or something, like a lot of them will talk to you, and it helps a lot.
Absolutely. It's that's actually a good idea. It probably would have sped up my own little journey to pay a consultant, but I kind of went about it the same way as you guys, just like brute force and just figure this out. Okay, so now you're at a co-op and it's like sunnier skies, green pastures.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Frolicking the flowers.
Yeah. So was their attitude when you first reached out to them, was it like kind of immediate, like, hey, welcome, come on over? Or like, how did some of those opening conversations go with the co-op?
So we sent them an email and said, we own property at this location. You currently service it. Here's what we're looking to do. Here's the power we're looking to pull. And the email they got back was, again, we know what you're doing. Yeah, we had a Bitcoin miner, just come, already show interest in coming onto our lines, and we're getting done powering them up. And they asked, some brief questions like, would you be interested in helping like with build the substation or make any upgrades to lines or anything like that? And we said, yep, very interested in that. What kind of power rate could you give us? And in the second email, he gives us a low power rate. And from there, it was just figuring out logisticals. It was not difficult with them at all. Wow. They were very open armed, like, yep. Because somebody else had already done, the work and talking to them and say, how, how you benefit from us and how you're a real co-op. You're really not, I mean, they're great guys, but it's not a huge operation, that co-op there. And so to come to them and say, we want 5 megawatts, we'd be, a huge part of their revenue. And so of course they're very motivated to get us, get us the power.
Yeah. It's, you guys end up being proportionally a larger percentage of their customer base. And I think was that JP Barrick or was that Adam Haynes? Which one of the guys? There's like three of you in Iowa.
Yeah,
you guys, JP and Adam.
Yeah, it was
JP.
JP's on that co-op, and then
he's on
Jeff Hote specifically was for our particular co-op, because there's a co-op above our co-op that JP's on. But with our rural co-op, it was Jeff Hote that did, and I don't know if you ever talked to him, but he's got very high energy. It's hard to say no to him because he'll just keep talking and talking and talking until you agree with him.
Yeah. So I haven't talked. I mean, we've been exchanging Twitter DMs for a while now. And I think, what I need to do is I need to just tell him I'll go hunting with him. I think that's going to be the only way that I can actually get a conversation in with him. Let's go bird hunting, and maybe I'll get him on.
Yeah, it is. It's funny.
So maybe walk me through like the substation upgrades that you guys had to do. You said that didn't scare you. It's usually pretty expensive.
It is. It's super expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we kind of had, two options that we could do. Is basically there was a substation in the city of Hampton, Iowa, which is, I guess, the closest city to us. So there was a substation with extra capacity on it, but we were going to have to either buy or rent the land next to the substation, and then we could run the lines through there, or we could pay to have the substation that's closest to where we are right now, which is where we actually own the land on it, so we could upgrade that substation and then run the 5 megawatt lines to us.
Okay.
We made the decision to stay where we owned the land, and there was kind of two major reasons for that. One, we were outside of the city limits, so regardless of what you think about Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, I'm outside of the city. You're not allowed to tell me what I can and can't do here.
Yep.
And that was a big deal for us because it was like, either way, we're looking at this, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars pretty much either way you slice it. And so it was like, okay, I at least want to know that, my mom is the landowner and she's not going to kick me out whenever she feels like it.
Hopefully,
and the city's not going to be, hopefully, the city's not going to be on my back about, the noise or whatever is, or they just simply don't like it. And so that was kind of the decision that led us to make the big sunk cost investments into the utility company's infrastructure.
Did it help you? Like, were you guys through that? Were you able to buy down the rate at all, or did that help? And when I say buy down the rate, they typically like blend that with like a payment back to you, or like did they offer any of that? And which is kind of like creative financing, where some of these utility companies they'll say, okay, upgrade the substation, and then you can work out like okay, after the first year, if we're still here, they'll start to make payments back to you for your infrastructure.
I wish, but no.
Okay.
That was...
I think we get a 2 or 3% discount for taking it at primary voltage, and that's it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, they all do it a little bit differently. I mean, it all kind of, what do they blend into their rate? All that sort of stuff. So,
that would be really nice. Though. We should go ask them about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I maybe another question on the co-op that you guys are with now. Did they explain to you that they had created, had they newly created a rate structure?
Not
Steven,
newly.
I'm seeing yes, maybe?
Not newly, but like they call it bit mining.
So
the literal rate structure is called BIT space mining.
Okay.
And so there had been other miners, in like this network of co-ops that we're a part of, that's kind of big in the Midwest where we are. And so there had been, other guys that had been mining, and so we're on the same basically like rate class as all of them. So, we didn't have to go and get into the weeds about making a rate plan, which was very, very helpful that kind of legwork had already been done for us.
hugely, hugely helpful. Those discussions can sometimes take a whole year just to get the new rate case established or the tariff established. So
Right.
yeah, that's awesome. It's
Yeah.
hugely beneficial to leverage that.
Yeah.
No, co-ops can make their own rates however they want. They don't have to go ask for permission. They can do it however, and they just have to, because our co-op talks to another co-op who talks to another co-op, and it's co-ops all the way up. But
Kind of one of the interesting things about, so we're in a regulated utility place in Iowa. This isn't Texas where things are deregulated. So kind of one of the ways that you can get around that is by going with the co-ops. The co-ops are not regulated at all by the like Iowa State Utility Board, so they can make their own rates and kind of do a lot of what they want on their lines, which has been super helpful because otherwise, if you're on just like a publicly traded Alliant Energy line, they have to go by all the rate structures that are in the state. And if, there's nothing they can do outside of that either. So now you have to get the Iowa State Utility Board to kind of go approve your rate, and you just more people to get through is always a hassle and a problem typically in this industry. So if you can kind of customize things more, it usually is super beneficial.
Absolutely. I recently have been having some discussions with the Minnesota Public Utility Commission.
Oh, no way.
Which it's been a lot of fun because the gentleman that I have been talking to, super open-minded and like super interested.
That's
but
good.
One of the things him and I keep getting hung up on and we keep butting heads about is he keeps saying that the utility companies cannot offer a power rate below the cost of production.
Okay.
So anyways, we kind of keep bumping into that as like an argument against, you look at, just, you don't even have to go that far south to find 5-cent power. And then you get into ERCOT and you can find like 3.5, 4-cent power. And
Yep.
that's just like on a whole nother planet for what we have here in Minnesota.
Yeah, you have to go where the energy is. It's really hard to bring energy to where it's not. I mean, there's the wind energy in southwest Minnesota, but yeah, if you're just the middle of Minnesota, there's not a huge amount of excess energy there, and so they got to bring it there, and that means you got to pay people to use their lines because they produce energy where it's produced, and it's not produced a lot in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're a net import state, which just works against us a lot. But the co-ops are kind of the sneaky little, like there's the Bit 49 site in Glencoe, Minnesota. They're on a co-op.
Yep.
Or no, sorry, a municipal. It's a muni.
Yeah. Very similar.
Functions very similar. Yeah.
Yep.
I wish we could have made something work in Minnesota. I mean, the environment is just how cold it is. It's so nice for the miners.
Yeah, well, and I want to get into like one of the things I want to chat with you guys about is like your infrastructure too, because we're in kind of a unique climate. Minnesota, Iowa, we're not too far apart. So we'll circle back to that, I promise. But I wanted to ask you, so having seen both sides of like the energy company, the ones that they don't give a shit, here's our rate, take it or leave it, and then now this co-op that's like, hey, we created a new rate structure. Interesting name for the structure, but they made it.
Yeah.
You guys can get on our Bitmine structure.
It's kind of like the running joke in our little. They don't know what it is, but they just they're trying to help.
I'd love to hear you guys talk about like what would like the perfect utility company relationship look like for you guys. Again, kind of having seen both. What's like the most ideal power company to work with?
One that either produces or generates their own power and has excess amount of it, or two allows us to basically buy wholesale through them. Because I'm sure some municipalities might do that, as they don't if they're just by themselves, they're not buying from someone else. If they don't have the generation, they have to buy it wholesale. And so if we can just come on their lines and say, hey, we basically use you to buy wholesale, and you can add a little markup on it, or you can buy a day ahead for our power. And then if you need some extra, we curtail and you can have that power because you already purchased it on the day ahead market.
Mhm.
Something like that, where they're small and they realize that they can use us to kind of be a flexible load on them, so they can bid on wholesale markets better than they currently can.
I think that's kind of the key word that Eric said there, which is use us, right? Like it's different. It's a conversation where we're asking the utility company for XYZ, blah blah blah, all the things that we want.
Yep.
And if you were able to find a utility provider that was like, okay, we want these things from you guys, that's when you start getting yourself a really good relationship where they're using you just as much as you're using them, and we kind of have this good relationship where we're both helping each other, and it's not just so one-sided. You kind of start finding yourself in a conversation like that, you're probably really close to the place you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate that a lot. Eric, you brought up, something that it is on my list of things that kind of like what you said, Stephen, where I almost need to pay a consultant to walk me through how the municipals here in Minnesota
Mhm.
operate through the wholesale markets and how people can actually plug into that and then have a little adder that it gets kicked over to the municipal.
It's a pass-through rate is what you would like.
Mm-hmm.
That's the term you'd want to use.
Okay.
You'd want to say a pass-through rate with them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of that would be like the dream, if you've
Mm-hmm.
you kind of if you went deep down the wholesale electricity markets, that's a that's a rabbit hole. That's a fun, very confusing, lots of
Mhm.
reading, reports for Minnesota. That would be like the MISO market, wholesale market. And there's just so many interesting things and that the miners can do that basically no other consumer can really do, and there's a lot of interesting volatility type things that you can kind of start playing on, but again, it's just getting somebody to kind of hear you out with these sorts of things, which is challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Super challenging. Yeah, it's super challenging. Actually, you guys just helped me learn a little bit more right there. I mean, I truly, I'm at the edge of the deep rabbit hole, looking at it, do I want to go down that path?
It's a little.
The answer is yes.
You want to go. It's a little scary, but you want to go.
Yep. Yeah. So that's for future episodes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to kind of switch gears, talk about your operation, the infrastructure, how you guys are operating, and maybe we can kind of start that off by just how are you staying competitive in a landscape that praises large mega facilities that can command 4-cent power or trade it, in the real-time markets? Walk me through how you guys are staying competitive compared to some of these big guys.
Short answer would be we don't have any middle managers or bloat in our company. It's just me and Steven, and since we're the founders, we do all the work. I'm the IT guy, I'm the operations guy, logistics guy. We don't have, separate managers for each department, and because you can have a super low power cost, but I mean, if you have 1,000 employees all taking a cut of that power cost, that quickly does not, it's not low anymore. It doesn't matter what it is. You still got to pay all these people. And that comes out of your bottom line, and the fact that that we can make do with less than you can. And so we can, I mean, if we need to, we can go without a profit if we have to. We can, I mean, there's so many different things that we can do just because it's just me and Steven, and we can figure it out. We don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops. We don't have to ask for permission. We just we do what works. If our customers aren't making money, we can switch up a rate plan. We can just be so much more flexible than other operations can be.
Maybe say a little bit more on the customer piece too, because I think one thing that you guys bring to the table is your ability to be more personable with your customers and to really be able to actually cater to, you guys serve a very, very different customer base where to, someone with 5 miners and one goes down, that's an impactful, downtime on their fleet. And, then having a lean organization like you guys do, you're able to respond quickly. So maybe go a little bit more on that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's you just kind of have to like be clever and creative with how fast this industry moves. So like one of the things that when we were getting this facility that we have set up right now, it was, the whole FTX thing was, the world was falling apart. $16,000 Bitcoin. We paid for all the infrastructure already. That money's gone. We bought a half a megawatt, 500 kilowatt container from Upstream. We don't have any reputation in the space. We've got 24 of our own miners, so we've got 120 slots that we need to sell. And, from the outside looking in, it's kind of like, oh shit, this is not a great situation to be in. Like, it was the least profitable time to ever be mining Bitcoin in the history of Bitcoin. Yeah. And then, we're running around trying to pre-sell all these, 120 slots. I'm a huge believer in just like doubling down on your advantage. Right. And so, coming from like my previous experience, in business, I knew I could market and sell. Like, I'm very confident in my abilities to market and sell. And so when we're running around selling these slots, I'm kind of doing my market research, and the Bitcoin space is notoriously, pseudonymous, anonymous, and people aren't really upfront with like who they are. And we just took the completely opposite approach where, we started putting out, we have a tiny little YouTube channel, and we started putting out content there. We got active on Twitter. And we were showing our face, this is our operation. We're in the middle of a farm. Everything you see here is exactly what you're going to get. And everyone just really appreciated that just level of transparency and honesty, that kind of we came with. And then we ended up pre-selling all of our slots, before, the container even showed up, which kind of shows like the success that had, but then when we're small too, we have 2 different rate classes. We just have like a flat rate, which is typically what the entire industry is based on. And then we came up with just like our profit sharing plan. And that was basically just to say, okay, if your break even was, 8 cents, let's get you on this plan. You're not going to make a lot, but you're not going to break even and you're not going to lose money with us. Let's just ride this thing out. You'll make $20-$30 a month on it. Okay, fine, no problem. And then we're going to ride this thing out. And then once we go back, we'll get you back on, your normal flat rate plan. And then you get all the upside. Right. And that helped us a lot. And then we didn't lock anybody into like these contracts. So our contracts are 12 months. But we did something shockingly simple that surprisingly not a lot of other people were doing, which is we just said, look, if you're unhappy with us, you can cancel your contract. You write us 30-day notice. We'll send your miner wherever you want. Right.
Wow.
And really that's just us saying, hey, look, we're going to accept, the risk and responsibility on our end. The people that are sending us miners are accepting so much risk by sending, these $1,000 worth of equipment to 2 random guys they met on Twitter or something and had a Zoom conversation with. Like, it's a lot if you put yourself in the customer's perspective, it's a lot to ask from them. And so that was our way of saying, look, this is a legally binding contract. If you want out, you can legally get out, and we have to do that for you. Otherwise we're breaking the law. It's a lot easier to do business. Okay, we can do business under these kinds of circumstances. Boom.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
I mean, that last point alone, Steven, like someone who is like business minded, it's like the first thing that comes to mind is like, you're potentially opening up to like having a hard time. But then when you think about it, I bet you not very many people take you up on that because you've already comforted them in the fact that they know shit hits the fan.
It's
we can cancel and we can pivot. But
yeah,
I doubt anyone or
nobody
very
has.
many people are taking that.
No, yeah, nobody. I mean, nobody has,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
it's funny, like when you provide guarantees to people, as long as you're not doing a horrifically bad job, like moving your miners and finding a new host is not an easy thing to do. It's not. You can't just like. It's not like when you're canceling a subscription on your credit card and you just click two buttons. Like, this is not an easy thing to do. So it was kind of like, we didn't think it was that risky, so to speak, on our end, because it was like, look, man, if we're gonna do an all right job, I think everyone will stay, and that was kind of the bet that
That's
we
the
made, so to
premise.
speak. And yeah, nobody's left. So
Yeah.
it's worked out.
Wow. That's fantastic. I mean, there's just so much in there that really helps you guys set yourselves apart. I mean, I hear all sorts of crazy shit for my day job. So, I mean,
Yeah,
you hear
sure.
things like 2-year terms,
Yeah.
3-month deposits.
It's great insanity.
Yeah,
And it's not like they're commanding low power rates. I mean, we're talking, in terms like that, you're talking 7.25.
Yeah.
Maybe 7.5 cent power, 2-year
Yeah.
term,
Yeah.
3-month, deposits up front.
I just,
All sorts of just crazy stuff.
I don't know why you're making it so hard for people to,
Yeah.
hand you money for your business. It's kind of like the golden rule. If you're running any kind of business, just, Bitcoin or anything else, like make it easy for people to do business with you. Like, like, I don't know why it's kind of like one of my beefs with this whole industry is like, why are we making it so difficult for people to come in and like do business with us here? Like, it just seems completely crazy,
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was a landlord for a little while. I owned some property. I've,
Sure.
kind of switched everything passively now at this point. But, I think back to then and it's the same thing, have a good product that people want to stay in and they're going to stay and it's going to be easy and it's not going to be that hard. Respond to phone calls when they call you. And
Yeah.
it's not a hard thing,
Do
but
the
you see a
basics,
lot of,
right?
yeah, you see a lot of bad actors in the space, or I don't know what
Mhm.
it is, but so all right, I did want, like I said, I wanted to come back to like the infrastructure. How are things going with the temperature difference? So one thing I'm really curious about is, are you guys seeing like condensation in the container? Maybe for the audience, the Midwest, Iowa, you are a little bit warmer, but like here in Minnesota, it's not unusual to go a month, 2 months of like -10 to sometimes with wind up to like -30 degree weather. That's Fahrenheit, not Celsius. So
yeah.
Yeah.
we
No,
get pretty gnarly up here. How are you guys working through the temp differences
so
and everything?
I mean, as the operations pro, I love the cold weather. It makes everything way easier. Hot weather is my worst nightmare. I hate running through the summer. It makes things very hard because you have to worry about, I mean, when you get the hotter you get, the less amperage the wires can safely carry, the breakers, the miners can handle. I mean, everything like that. So when it's colder, you can push everything harder. We have a 500 kVA transformer that I could, if it's, and being Iowa, we got a constant 10-20 mile an hour wind. If that's 5 degrees Fahrenheit of 10 mile an hour wind and blowing across a transformer, I got way better heat dissipation. I can probably push that 500 kVA to 600-700 kVA if I really wanted to, just because I have so much better heat dissipation, and heat is the killer of transformers and everything else.
Yeah.
And with the heat, again, I can run more through the breakers. I can push the miners harder, and therefore I can sell more energy. And customers are more interested in buying more energy because they're getting the same efficiencies because, again, it's colder out. So the cold weather just helps us so much. We can just push everything harder, sell more energy, keep efficiencies the same. We just don't lose anything, and there's no harm. And I don't know how the Texas guys do it in their 110-degree temperature. God, I would hate life if that were me, dude. That'd be a fucking nightmare.
It's not fun to live in it either. It's
Yeah.
Oh no.
I spent a year down in Dallas. It's pretty brutal down there. I mean, how about like condensation? So okay, so outside's -10 with heavy wind. inside your container is probably like 30 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, that's a fairly big temp. Do you guys get condensation in the container at all?
No, so I want to give a big shout out to Upstream here. They have some of the best heat recirculation that I've seen in the container market. No one else has their design
Mhm.
where, because I always make fun of everyone else's heat recirculation because it doesn't really recirculate heat on the outside. It only cycles heat on the inside. Well, the problem is you get ice and snow buildup on the outside of your container, it chokes your container out, or you get if it's really, really cold and there's blowing snow, you get that really fine snow that'll make
Mm-hmm.
it through your filters. And that's where that condensation would come from, is that from that outside snow. But if you melt that snow on the outside and you turn it to water before it gets in your container, like Upstream does, is they suck in the hot air outside the filters you already melted. There's no fine snow getting into your container. So I got to give them a big shout out to their design. It's the best that I've seen that can handle the cold weather and the snow. Everyone else just doesn't do it well, in my opinion. They all say they can do it well, but you can't convince me. They say, I got these snow shields on my filters or whatever, no snow gets in, but it's like, well, okay, what happens when it clogs up your filter? No, nothing got in, but you're still sucking air.
You're choked, yeah.
Yeah, because that happened to us one time where I had the recirculation panels closed and our container choked out because they got frosted over.
You're welcome, Steve Barber. I know that you occasionally tune in to listen to an episode, so no, that's fantastic. I love Steve Barber. I love his designs.
Don't buy cheap containers, right?
No.
You can buy, you're going to sit, like the idea that you're not going to buy the top of the line container is crazy to me, especially if you're hosting and putting other people's equipment in there and you're not going to buy, what's widely regarded as one of the top manufacturers of mining containers in the world, which is Upstream Data. I mean, just foolish, right? Just completely foolish. And it's, you're only going to hurt yourself. You hurt your customers. Everyone loses, and you're just trying to cut corners on things. And these containers, they don't have the lifespan of the miners. Like, these are going to last a long time. So there's just no reason to cheap out.
Yeah, Steve's container has these really, really unique bottom of the heat shroud that'll open up, and then the top of the intake that'll open up. So you can literally, like what you were talking about, Eric, you can literally funnel from the outside. I'm doing like a circulation motion.
No,
for audio only, but it'll pull it through the outside, like you're saying. It really cool design. Hats off to that. Yeah, don't buy cheap stuff. Don't buy cheap infrastructure. It's just gonna kick you in the ass later.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's the only thing that gives you an advantage, the infrastructure. It's the only thing these days that gives you an advantage, right? We all have access to the same hardware, the same miners. I can get the same miners as Riot can, same exact ones, right? There's no advantage there, right? So if you're going to go spend money on great infrastructure. Like, I cannot stress it enough.
100%. Yeah. It's I'm a big advocate of it. Well, I've learned it in my own personal life so many times. Like, you go and you buy something secondhand off Facebook or Craigslist, and you got to go fucking buy you got to go buy it again because it broke.
Yeah.
Like, I've learned it enough in my own life where it's like, just buy new, buy it, quality, and you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble. So, guys, I want to kind of round out the conversation here with, what does the future look like for you guys, for Wilson Mining? Like we said at the top, you guys are kind of in that horse class, if we're going to go with Bob Burnett's, classification system. What's the future look like for you guys?
So we actually just wrote a blog post about this that did actually really surprisingly well a couple days ago. We released it on Sunday night, and it actually did really well. We got a lot of good feedback on it. But basically, kind of what we were talking about was, what's important infrastructure, and we already went through a lot of that. And then the second part of the post was talking about like the history of mining and how it's actually we're actually going through like what I was calling the energy stack, right? So you started, our story was you started in your basement on residential, and then, you moved to, a commercial facility, and then, slowly, the miners, today are in like the big mega 100 megawatt PPA, and that is kind of like the era that we're in right now.
Yep.
And basically I was, making the point that, like, look, the little guys, we still have, there's still one more layer in the energy stack. And that stack is generation. And so the point I was kind of making in this post was like, look, the game isn't over yet, my friends, my fellow plebs. Like, it's not over, and we haven't lost yet to the big guys. And so the plan for us is we're surrounded by, there's a 200 megawatt wind farm 5 miles away from us. There's going to be another 200 megawatt wind farm going up. They actually want to put a lot of the turbines on our actual farmland that we have.
Sweet.
We're telling, I mean, no, not, we're telling them, no, we're telling them no. But the point being that mining is going to the last step of the energy stack, which is generation. And the small, medium horses and the rabbits of the world, we are going to be much better positioned to go to the generation than somebody like, a huge, Riot, for example, who has a gigawatt of energy. Where are you going to generate that much energy, right? It's just so much power. You can barely even comprehend it. So anyways, the long story short here is we're sitting there looking around. There's going to be wind turbines everywhere. Obviously the developers of these wind companies did all their homework and all the research, and they could have put these wind turbines anywhere, but they're sitting there saying, okay, we want to put them here, right? And so that signals to people like us, that this is a really good place to generate your own wind power. So that is kind of like the end goal for us is, turbines up on the farmland, a transformer, a container right at the base of the windmills. You generate your own power straight up to the ASIC. If everyone else on the network has to buy their energy and you don't have to buy it consistently, then you're producing lower than everybody else in a commodity market, and you win the game, so to speak, is kind of the long and the short. So I guess my final thoughts that I wanted to leave everybody with is, when you're thinking about, okay, how do I compete with the big guys? They've got, 3-cent power, 4-cent power, and they've got all the money, and they can raise any amount of money that they want. But if you heard me, one of the largest developers of wind energy in the world wants to develop on our farmland, and we make up 25% of that project, right? It doesn't matter.
Oh, wow.
Because we own the land. You're not putting any windmills up there. It's not going to happen, right? It's my land. I can do what I want with it. You're not putting any windmills up. So the point being is, go find yourself a place, tiny little place, where it's good for, wind. In the examples I gave, I used wind, solar, and flare gas, unless anyone here can figure out how to build their own nuclear or nat gas or something, but I highly doubt it. But the point being is, if you go land grab and secure a great place to produce your own energy, then everyone has to play the way you want to, because it's yours and they can't just take it from you, right? And so kind of thinking one step ahead, like, where can I go that I can get a little piece where the sun shines all the time or the wind blows all the time, or I know somebody with a flare gas, which would be even better, and go there and kind of start moving, to the last step, which is in our opinion, generation. And that's kind of where we see the small guys thriving versus kind of getting squeezed out.
I love it.
So
Eric, anything to throw in there?
No, I mean, he describes it very well. He does a very good job. No, I mean, other than I mean, again, it's hard to avoid places that are hot sometimes, but avoid the heat the best you can. I mean, again, from the operational side, heat is the big killer of ASICs, breakers, wires, everything. So if you can get energy, you can get in a cold place, you're really cooking.
Awesome. Well, it's exciting to see, and I do encourage everyone listening to go check out that post. Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what you guys do. Very cool that you guys make up a pretty sizable chunk of that, potential wind farm as far as like land. It's going to be interesting to see if you guys can work something out there.
We
Hopefully,
tried, they
maybe.
won't. They tried, they
Then
won't.
they won't.
Yeah,
Stubborn
dude, they
bastards.
no, I mean, it's crazy,
Hmm.
again, if you're not the size that they want, they're basically not willing to.
Oh, it's a size thing?
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean, their whole thing was like, this is probably good info for people. Is we were going to say the deal we wanted was you guys can build on our land, but then you have to sell us the power that we want to support our 5 megawatts. And they didn't. They were like, if you guys can do the full, you can buy all the energy, then we'd be interested. Which 200 megawatts, you get 40% capacity. We'll say, so that's 80 megawatts.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a stretch for us
Okay.
at the current moment. But that's kind of like the hidden little alpha. There is a lot of these
That's cool.
these deals. They want one buyer buy everything, or
Yep.
we're not interested.
Yep. Wow.
So
It's that should be a discussion in person over beers one of these times.
yeah, for
guys,
sure.
I want
go
to
into it.
Yeah, I want to leave some room for you guys to give a handoff. I want the audience to be able to find you. Please plug socials, your website, etc., and we'll link it all in the show notes. But please tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can get us on Twitter. We're at Wilson Mining. And then Telegram, same thing, at Wilson Mining. And then wilsonmining.io. So we've got hosting slots. Right now, we've got 20-something left. They're probably going to be going pretty quick. And then we'll have 240 more coming online like in the spring, probably right around the halvening. If you've been thinking about hosting or getting into mining, getting yourself a good host is the first order of business. Finding ASICs is way easier than finding a good host. And the way that we've always done things is, our existing customers are always going to get priority over new ones. So we highly encourage people, send us a miner. Let's get you plugged in. Let's see how this goes for both parties. And if we both like each other, then we can progressively continue on going. But then that way you always are going to get priority over anyone that's new when coming in. So I would highly encourage, if you've considered it, shoot us an email, shoot us a DM or something. Get yourself to be a customer of us, so that as you continue want to grow your fleet, you get the priority when we have new slots that come online. Basically,
it's awesome.
Sweet.
Totally agree. The ASIC market is flooded. They are easy to find.
Yep.
Good hosts are not easy to find. So I appreciate that, guys. Steven, Eric, this has been a blast. I really appreciate the time. This conversation it's been a lot of fun.
Yes.
And now that I know you guys are both close to me here in Minnesota, we'll make this an in-person thing over some real cocktails next time. And you guys take care.
Likewise. Thanks for having us on, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care.
Take care.
Awesome.